I want you to imagine, just for a second, trying to get famous.
Oh, boy.
But, we are rewinding the clock here. I want you to imagine trying to achieve massive viral fame before the machinery of modern virality even existed.
Right, which is almost impossible to picture now.
Exactly. We are talking about a world way before TikTok, before algorithmic feeds, before you could just shoot a 30-second video in your bedroom.
Yeah.
And you just, hit upload, and suddenly you reach millions of people while you are still making your morning coffee.
Oh, easily. The landscape was completely different.
Totally. In the early 2000s, the gates to fame were locked, guarded, and basically made of solid steel.
Yep.
If you wanted to be a musician, you had to get past the industry executives. So, how do you do it?
It's the million-dollar question.
Right. If the traditional gates were bolted shut because you simply did not fit the mold, how do you force your way inside?
You'd have to get pretty creative.
Well, the answer we are looking at today is completely unhinged. You invent a completely fake, fabricated identity from scratch.
This is out of thin air.
Out of nowhere. And you just hope an entire multi-million-dollar industry is gullible enough to buy the whole package.
I mean, the sheer audacity of that strategy is staggering, especially when you consider, the analog mechanics of pulling off a scam of this magnitude back then.
Right. There were no deep fakes.
Exactly. This isn't just photoshopping an Instagram picture. This is living, breathing, and literally walking into boardrooms in London as a completely different human being.
It's wild.
It sounds like a fever dream, but it is a thoroughly documented historical reality.
And that reality is the subject of today's deep dive. We are focusing on the film California Schemin, which is actually the directorial debut of actor James McAvoy.
Very exciting debut, too.
For sure. Okay, let's unpack this. We are going to explore the utterly chaotic, true story behind this film.
And it really is chaotic.
Oh, completely. We'll examine what this bizarre chapter reveals about the music industry's incredibly shallow obsession with, quote-unquote, authenticity. And we'll look at how McAvoy attempts to translate all this real-life madness into a compelling, if arguably conventional, cinematic underdog story.
Yeah, to really grasp the lengths these two artists went to, we have to start with the barrier they hit.
The brick wall.
Right. Because the solution they came up with is absurd, but it only makes sense when you understand the absolute rigidity of the problem they were facing.
This was in Dundee, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
Dundee, Scotland.
Yeah.
In the early 2000s.
Well, let's lay out that roadblock for everyone. We have our two main guys, best mates, Гэvin Beyne, who is played in the film by Simus МакЛин Росс.
Yep.
And Billy Бойd, played by Sэмюэл Боттомли. Now, these two are aspiring rappers.
They're very passionate ones.
Exactly. They are pouring their hearts into their music in Dundee. But, talent alone is getting them absolutely nowhere.
Nowhere at all.
Yeah.
Because they are running face first into an industry that operates on a very narrow, highly specific definition of credibility. When Гэvin and Billy take their music down to London, to the gatekeepers of the UK music scene, they aren't being judged on their flow or their lyrics or their beats.
Which is what you'd expect them to be judged on.
You would think.
Yeah.
But no, their thick Scottish accents immediately mark them as novelties.
Wow.
Yeah, the executives hear the Dundee geography and instantly categorize them as a joke. They're basically dismissed before the track even finishes playing.
Wait, that makes zero sense to me. I mean, if the music hits, the music hits. Why on earth would a record label care if the guy holding the mic grew up in Dundee or Detroit?
It sounds crazy today.
It's like having a Michelin star recipe but serving it on a paper plate and the judges just refuse to taste the food because of the plate. If the talent is there, shouldn't the industry be thrilled to market the first great Scottish rap duo?
Well, see, you are looking at this from the perspective of someone who appreciates music for the sake of music.
I guess I am, yeah.
But that's not how the executives in this era operated at all. It's kind of like trying to sell an indie art house film to a studio executive who is exclusively looking for a summer superhero blockbuster.
Oh, okay.
The executives weren't acting as music critics. They were acting as product managers.
Just looking for widgets to sell.
Exactly. They were looking for a specific SKU to put on the shelf. Rap, in the commercial mindset of the early 2000s UK music scene, had a very specific geographical and cultural origin story.
The American story.
Right. A story that the labels knew how to sell. It was an imported American culture. A Scottish accent didn't have a barcode they could scan, basically.
It didn't fit the spreadsheet.
Right. It shattered the illusion The gatekeepers didn't reject Gavin and Billy because the music was lacking. They rejected them because they didn't know how to market the packaging.
So the industry essentially demands an illusion. They aren't looking for raw truth. They are looking for a familiar narrative they can just, put a price tag on.
And that realization right there is the spark for the entire film. Yeah, Gavin and Billy realize that playing by the rules is a losing game because the rules are rigged against their zip code.
Right, so they flip the board.
They do. They make a highly rational, albeit chaotic, calculation. They figure if the industry will only buy a Californian narrative, well, we will simply manufacture a Californian narrative.
And they completely reinvent themselves. I mean, they adopt American accents. They fabricate these wildly detailed Californian backstories.
The whole 9 yards?
Yeah, and they relaunch themselves as a fictitious rap duo called Silibil N Brains. And here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, absolutely.
Against all logic, the plan actually works. They don't just get a foot in the door, they kick the door off its hinges.
Yeah, and the execution of the lie is where the film finds its sharpest satirical edge.
I bet.
I mean, you have these brilliant montage sequences of clumsy accent practice.
Like them just standing around trying to sound American.
Exactly. The two of them figuring out how to carry themselves with this manufactured swagger, learning the slang, building the lore of Silibil N Brains.
It's like an undercover cop movie or something.
It really is. And then they take this deeply amateur theatrical performance into the high-stakes boardrooms of London record labels.
And the exact same executives who laughed them out of the room when they spoke with a Dundee accent, suddenly they are sitting up, leaning forward, and taking them incredibly seriously.
This is like that.
Just a few tweaks to the vowels and a massive dose of unearned confidence, and suddenly they are the hottest commodity in town.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is that the executives were buying quote-unquote authenticity that was entirely manufactured in a Scottish bedroom.
It's hilarious.
It completely punctures the myth of the discerning industry ear.
Oh, totally.
I mean, these gatekeepers, the people who dictate taste to the general public, the people who claim to possess a magical ability to detect real, raw talent.
The experts.
Right, the experts. They fundamentally could not tell the difference between genuine Californian hip-hop artists and two Scottish kids literally just putting on a voice.
It is a devastating critique of the people in power. But, there is a massive layer of irony here that we have to talk about.
For sure.
Because the initial motivation for Gavin and Billy was a kind of punk rock rebellion, right?
That was the idea, yeah.
They started this scam as a deliberate attempt to expose the music industry's shallow obsession with image. They wanted to prove a point, like, look how stupid you all are, you'll buy anything if it sounds American.
Right, it's supposed to be a prank.
But by succeeding so wildly, they end up actively participating in the exact same shallow system they set out to destroy.
They become the very product they were satirizing.
Exactly.
And that transition is where the film moves from a lighthearted caper into much more complex territory.
It gets dark?
It does. Because the success of the scam isn't the end of the story, it's the beginning of a massive psychological trap.
Wow.
The momentum of the lie basically creates a cage.
Right, because you can't just undo it.
No, you can't just reveal the prank at a party and laugh about it when there are record contracts and massive sums of money involved.
Yeah. The psychological weight of that must be crushing.
Absolutely crushing.
I mean, think about it. Imagine you've created this avatar, this fake character, and suddenly that avatar is getting everything you ever dreamed of. The money, the respect, the VIP treatment, the record deals.
Everything they wanted.
But none of it is actually for you. It's for a ghost. At what point does the character you're playing become the person you actually are?
That's the core question.
How do you maintain any sense of self-worth when your true self was completely rejected and your fake self is universally beloved?
And that internal friction is exactly what drives the emotional core of McAvoy's film. The narrative shifts from the external mechanics of pulling off the scam to the internal toll it takes on their friendship.
Yeah, the dynamic between the two leads must be so important there.
It is crucial. Bottomley's character, Billy, he becomes the cautious realist. He is the one feeling the psychological weight you just described.
He sees the cracks forming.
Exactly. He sees the cliff edge approaching and realizes that this house of cards has to collapse eventually.
He wants to hit the brakes.
But Ross's Gavin goes the completely opposite direction.
Oh, no.
Yeah, Gavin becomes deeply intoxicated by the ambition, the adrenaline of the con, and the promise of fame. He really starts to lose sight of the line between Gavin from Dundee and his Californian alter ego.
It's that classic double act, but played for incredibly high stakes.
Definitely.
I read that the chemistry between Simus МакЛин Росс and Sэмюэл Боттомли is the anchor of the movie. You have one guy desperately trying to keep his feet on the ground and the other guy just floating away on this toxic bubble of his own lies.
That's a perfect way to describe it.
And to add another layer of friction, we have the character of Mary, Billy's girlfriend, who is played by Lucy Halliday.
Yes. Mary's presence in the narrative is vital. She operates almost as the audience surrogate.
She's the voice of reason.
Right. While the boys are getting lost in the delusion of the Californian fantasy, she represents the undeniable Dundee truth that they are desperately trying to escape.
She grounds the whole thing.
She does. She's the lone naysayer providing these crucial moments of grounded reality. And often it's just through a snort of disbelief at their increasingly elaborate deceptions.
Just rolling her eyes at them.
Pretty much. She is the only one who isn't buying a ticket to the Silibil N Brains show.
And her reaction really highlights the tragedy of Gavin's descent.
It does, yeah.
When he allows his ambition and this fake persona to overshadow his real friendship with Billy, the film takes on a much darker edge.
It stops being a fun joke.
Right. It's no longer just about fooling the record executives. It's about the terrifying reality of having to wake up every single day and perform a lie.
It's exhausting.
You have to maintain the subscription, your own fake identity, and the cost of that subscription is your sanity and your closest relationships.
And, that tension between the comedy of the scam and the tragedy of the psychological fallout, that is an incredibly difficult needle to thread for any director.
Oh, definitely.
Let alone someone making their debut behind the camera.
Which brings us to the biggest question about James McAvoy's role in all of this.
Yes, the directing.
He is stepping into the director's chair for the first time with a story that requires balancing laugh-out-loud satire, working-class drama, and a genuinely tense psychological thriller about identity.
With a lot of plates to spin.
How does he handle that massive undertaking?
Well, from what the review tells us, he handles it with a surprising amount of grace.
Okay, good.
The execution is described as incredibly warm and sincere. And what is particularly notable about McAvoy's approach is that it possesses an appealing lack of fuss.
Lack of fuss. I like that.
Yeah, there is no reliance on overly flashy visual gimmicks or avant-garde camera work. Instead, he focuses his energy on the performances and on capturing the loose, affectionate energy of Dundee.
Right, setting the scene.
He really nails that specific, suffocating feeling of small-town ambition, where the desire to escape is so strong it drives people to do completely irrational things.
But there is a significant critique of his directorial choices that we need to address, right?
Yes, there is a flip side to that lack of fuss.
Because the storytelling, while warm, is accused of smoothing out the chaotic, real-life edges of this deeply unhinged story in favor of a very conventional underdog narrative.
Right, it falls into some familiar patterns.
The film relies heavily on familiar music biopic rhythms. I mean, we all know the drill. You have the initial struggle in the hometown, the sudden breakthrough in the big city,
Of course.
the wild montage of excess, and then the inevitable dramatic fallout between the bandmates.
The classic arc.
The review calls the film scrappy and thoroughly predictable.
Predictable being the key word there.
So what does this all mean? If you have a story this bizarre, a story that fundamentally breaks all the rules of how the music industry is supposed to work, shouldn't the filmmaking break the rules too?
It's a fair question.
Did McAvoy play it entirely too safe by forcing this wild, unprecedented scam into a standard cookie-cutter biopic formula?
It is a totally valid critique, and I think it strikes at the central tension of adapting bizarre, true events for a mainstream audience.
You have to make it watchable.
Exactly. You want to honor the madness, but you also want people to actually sit through the movie. If we connect this to the bigger picture, I would strongly defend McAvoy's directorial choices here.
Really? Why is that?
Well, consider the cognitive load on the audience. You are already asking them to buy into the fact that two Scottish kids successfully fake their way into London record deals using improvised American accents and sheer bravado.
Which is a lot to ask.
It is. The story itself is inherently chaotic.
So if the directing was chaotic too, it would just be noise.
Precisely. If the filmmaking was as avant-garde and rule-breaking as the scam itself, it might completely alienate the viewer.
They just tune out.
Yeah, they'd be lost. So by grounding this bizarre, true-life absurdity in familiar narrative rhythms, the struggle, the breakthrough, the excess, the fallout McAvoy provides the audience with a necessary roadmap through the madness.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
The conventional structure basically acts as an anchor. It helps the audience digest the biting satire of the music industry without feeling overwhelmed by the weirdness of the plot.
It's like a structural Trojan horse.
Yes. Perfect analogy.
The familiar, comforting biopic format is the wooden horse, and the bizarre, satirical takedown of the music industry is the army hiding inside.
Exactly.
Which is incredibly fitting, considering the entire plot of the movie is about Gavin and Billy using a Trojan horse, their fake Californian personas, to get through the locked doors of the record labels.
It is a perfect parallel. And I think it proves that McAvoy actually has a very sharp instinct for tone and comedy.
He knew what he was doing.
He did. He knew exactly how much weirdness the audience could handle before they needed a familiar, predictable story beat to hold on to.
Right.
And that balance of humor and heart is what turns a potentially alienating story into a highly buoyant, entertaining watch. The source even calls it an undeniable hoot.
An undeniable hoot. I love that. It really highlights the power of knowing your audience, both for McAvoy as a director and for Silibil N Brains as a fake rap duo.
Absolutely.
So, to bring it all together, our journey through this deep dive started with two kids in Dundee hitting a massive geographical brick wall.
Built by short-sighted industry gatekeepers.
Exactly. And we watched them invent a completely fabricated identity using a manufactured narrative to expose a system that valued the packaging over the actual product.
Which they did brilliantly.
They really did. We dug into the immense psychological strain that playing a full-time character puts on a real, grounded friendship.
The hidden cost of the scam.
Right. And finally, we looked at how James McAvoy's sincere, straightforward direction turns this wild scam into a heartfelt cinematic debut. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes, if the front door is locked because you don't look or sound the part, you just have to build your own door.
And you have to convince everyone else in the room that the door was there the whole time.
Exactly.
But, as we wrap up, there's a final lingering thought I really want to leave you with.
Let's hear it.
We can sit back today, watch this film, and easily laugh at those London executives in the early 2000s. We think, wow, how gullible. How could they be so easily fooled by fake accents and a bit of borrowed swagger?
We feel very superior.
Right, we do. But look closely at how we interact with media today. If these two guys could fake an entire geographical, cultural, and personal identity with just clumsy accent practice before social media even existed.
Right.
Think about the landscape right now.
Oh, man.
How much of the authenticity we absolutely demand from our favorite artists, our daily influencers, and even our peers online today, how much of that is really just a modern, highly digitized version of Silibil N Brains?
That is a brilliant point. With filters, carefully curated feeds, and AI, the tools for manufacturing authenticity are like a million times more powerful now than a fake American accent in a London boardroom.
Oh, completely. It's effortless now.
Yeah. Are we just looking at a different set of illusions, completely convinced we are seeing the raw truth, when really we are being sold the exact same meticulously crafted packaging?
It's very possible.
That is definitely something to chew on. Until next time, keep digging.